and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Occupancy podcast. I'm Julie Podewitz, CEO and founder, and today I welcome Aaron Fish to the show. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you for having me, Julie.
Well, Aaron is the founder and CEO of Trestle Hospitality Concepts. With nearly 30 years in the hospitality and senior living industries, Aaron's focus has been elevating the customer experience. His experiences with top hospitality organizations has led him to develop a unique customer-focused food and hospitality operation. We're all about customer experience here on the sales side, so I'm excited to talk with you. Aaron is a seasoned senior living executive, and his best-in-class experiences for operators and residents are accomplished through innovative concept design, implementing best practices, system development, and training programs. Aaron has a Bachelor of Science in Hospitality Management from Kansas State, and you also have a master's degree from, is it Baker University? Impressive. You know, my mother's father, so my maternal grandfather, born and raised in Kansas, and he's like multi-generation, goes way back farmers. And they were, kind of successful farmers in Kansas.
It's quite a few. It's a great place. I don't live there currently, but there's always a little part of me that wants to go back. So
Are you from Kansas originally, Aaron?
I am born and raised. Yeah, I lived in Kansas until I came to Texas about 12 years ago. So I'm a Midwestern guy.
I am too. I'm Michigan.
Okay.
So you are truly in Kansas. You're right there in the Midwest.
Yes, for sure.
I really enjoy talking with you and getting to know you, Aaron. And I really wanted to have you on the podcast. And because last time we spoke, you talked about hospitality as a strategic initiative. And I'm wondering if you could explain more about that.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of times, from what my experience has been in senior living, we talk about customer service and we put all these things in place, but it really truly kind of feels more like it's marketing material. There's a lot of things that go in behind it sometimes, but there's the emphasis is on, like, let's make sure we're getting our care tasks done. Let's make sure that we have all of our marketing metrics in place. And so there's not really this conversation around actually looking at things with hospitality. And so I refer to it as the three-legged stool, and of real estate, healthcare, and then hospitality being that third one. And the reason I think it's so important to look at it strategically is that it kind of can balance things out. It provides that extra stability, and then it becomes more part of the culture when we talk about doing customer service and we talk about how we create experiences for residents. When you think about providing healthcare in an assisted living community, for example, like, we're probably only interacting with those residents in that way for 2 or 3 hours a day, right? And so outside of that, and when they're sleeping, you've got another 12 to 14 hours. What are you doing? How are you interacting? What are you creating in that community for them? And so, it from my standpoint, and when I work with operators, that's what I have found is that those that embrace it that way, look at it that way, have a lot more success in just their overall operation. And they really bring some extra value to what they do.
It's interesting, Aaron, you talk about a three-legged stool, and those of us in sales often talk about a three-legged stool as well, of sales, operations, and wellness needing to work in collaboration for a successful customer experience. But obviously all areas of a community, all departments, if you will. And even though, like you mentioned, residents will experience in dining room for maybe 2-3 hours a day, or maybe even less sometimes, it is one of, if not the most talked about or topic of interest, right? Engagement of interest for residents or prospective residents. So how how in your experiences in food, in hospitality and that entire experience affect sales or impact sales?
Yeah. So, when you think about all of those other things with the hospitality, like the way the front desk manages, the way the dining room flows, how good is the food, all those things have the first one and most obvious, obviously, is the back door, right? Like you're keeping residents in the community by their own choice, right? They're not leaving because the operation isn't going the way they want to. They're getting the experience they want, you know. But I think, when you also think about that, you're thinking about that resident satisfaction. Well, you're avoiding the negativity that can come from a bad meal experience or a bad experience with someone at the front desk, and those are things that can get shared in with a tour prospect, things that can wind up online. I know that there's so many times, we would, you're in that executive corporate office and you're talking about the negative reviews you get on Google or online. And then we had at one point, one operator I worked with, we had a team, and our job was to literally respond to those negative comments with emails and phone calls, which I'm sure your listeners aren't surprised to hear. But with doing things and focusing kind of on all of this on the front end and really trying to use that, how do hospitality professionals outside of senior living approach their business? If you use that same kind of mindset with creating, you know, replicable processes and procedures and elevating experiences, you can kind of nip all of that before it starts, right? And so now you're generating positivity, you're getting really good things being said in the community by residents, and they're sharing that with families, and all of those positive Facebook posts or social media posts, those things start to generate themselves organically by having this as a part of what you do every day. You know, and the last thing I would say is, when this becomes kind of second nature, right? When I talk about it being strategically a part of just what you do every day, that tour experience, that prospect experience is automatically elevated, right? Like, think about, going into a really nice hotel or a really good restaurant where everybody makes eye contact, everybody acknowledges you, and you kind of just feel welcomed, right? Well, if this is part of what you do as an operator, then that tour experience, that prospect experience when they're in the community, or when a family member maybe comes by on the weekend, or one of those surprise tours, those kinds of things all kind of, they just happen naturally and organically, and it's not forced, right? It doesn't feel like somebody's reading off of a script to answer questions.
That's a lot of great information, and I'm taking notes. I wanted to comment on something you just said about when it. I say similar things sometimes in sales as it relates to sales. If you have like for tour experiences or visit experiences, customer experience, when it's like you were saying, it's a part of the system in the process. It's a little bit like having guests at your home. When your home is kept relatively clean and there was a surprise guest, you don't freak out. Or someone's coming in a half an hour, you could just maybe, dust it up a little bit.
Yeah,
But you keep it kind of guest ready, right? So there are standards and also behavioral standards that it's not, oh gosh, a guest is here, I'm going to smile and give eye contact and allow them to step into the elevator first. That just
yeah,
comes naturally because that's what sex expected. So,
yeah.
can you give us an example in from the dining side of it? What might one of those behaviors or actions be where you feel it
Yeah,
should
no,
be regularly?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, my mind always goes to the after hours or the weekends, right? Because if your marketer, your salesperson is there, they're probably doing those tours, they're talking to the prospects, so they're setting the stage and they're the experts at that. They always do it well. But think about somebody that shows up at 6 o'clock, right? Or on a weekend night or weekend day. Um, you know, they are inherently doing hospitality, right? If that's just part of what they are and how they speak, they're going to welcome them. They're going to be able to answer questions. They may not be able to answer specific questions, right? If they're not fully versed, but they can give them a tour around. They feel comfortable that they don't have to worry about hiding things. And so being able to speak to a prospect in any role, whether it's a server or a cook or a chef, and letting them feel comfortable in that. I think if they're naturally uh, in that hospitality mindset, then I think being able to speak to those prospects isn't an uncomfortable thing, and then it'll feel more welcoming. And I think that gives the marketer more confidence, but it gives those families and prospects more confidence too. That hey, this is somebody who isn't supposed to give tours or isn't supposed to talk about this, but they are, and they're just talking from kind of from their heart about the place, right? And so I think that's one way that they can really help the process. You can always have your chef. I know chefs are notorious for wanting to hide in the kitchen, right? But being able to bring a chef out who can be comfortable and talk to the food and answer questions about the food. We know that food is a top five satisfier when it comes to what people are looking for in a community. And just knowing that they can talk to the chef, that they can have a conversation, and just be able to, I think the honesty of a chef being able to say, well, we don't do that, but we can do this, or we do offer these things. I think being able to be upfront and honest about that, but being comfortable having that conversation can go a long way too, because it kind of broadens the marketing team, right? It's not just the sales director doing this, it's everybody in the community that's able to be a part of that team.
You bring up a good point. We talk about, a customer or a service focused or sales centered revenue generating culture. It scares people who aren't in marketing or aren't in sales. Like I don't know how to do that. I've never done sales, but by simply connecting, introducing yourself, being interested in a guest, you're who happens to be touring, that is customer experience, right? It's not
Yeah,
difficult. You don't have to sell or be a marketer. It's all really just about relationships, experience. And if you enjoy people and you appreciate people, it doesn't matter what your personality is. It doesn't matter if you're outgoing or shy, or just be you. And that, like you said, that will give your guest, your prospect, your families a feeling of what it would be like to live in your community, which is what ultimately uh, we want to communicate it
yeah,
during our
absolutely.
tours and experience.
Yeah,
So
and I really, in my past experience, I always pushed my food and beverage teams to be doing that, right? You're already providing hospitality, you're providing service, you're trying to provide customer service. So just expand that mindset. And that's why I think being strategic and kind of saying this is just a part of our culture, part of what we do. It's as important as making sure that, call lights are answered on time and that, invoices are sent out on time. Those it just becomes part of the process. And I think that when it becomes part of your culture, like it makes the sales director's job that much more easy, because then at that point it's let me just get them in here, right? Like once I get somebody in here, place will sell itself. And that's kind of why hospitality or how hospitality can really help elevate the sales process.
mhm. Um, can you give example of like a really positive, best in class, if you will, collaboration between marketing or sales and dining experience?
Yeah. So, the first thing I'll say about that is if you want a collaboration to go well, the communication and relationship piece has to be top notch. You have to trust marketer and the marketer has to trust the chef and the dining director. And the ones that have always done the best is where those two were like this, right? They were on the same page. They understood their role and how it was impactful. But one of the things that uh, I've always encouraged our chefs and our directors to do, dining directors to do, is to help do outreach, right? I know
Mhm.
that seems like such a foreign thing. Like, why would I bring the chef on outreach, right?
Oh,
But if you're going to doctors' offices or rehab centers or wherever it might be, right? They're going to want to know about, well, what is the food like? Is this person going to eat? Are they going to get the nutrition they want? Like, what's the quality of all that like? And so having that person there who's the expert in that area and kind of making a point of they're here, they answer questions, they want to be a part of it. We can talk about that. It's a whole different angle to take on an outreach call. And it can have a lot of benefits, I think, because it lets you have a different conversation than maybe other people are having with those prospects.
Yeah, a lot of times, Aaron, I love that. First of all, dining directors who are listening, executive directors, we often encourage our wellness leaders, nurses, to do outreach and get out because care is such an important element and on people's minds, certainly with outreach. But gosh, dining, to your
Yeah,
point, what so like to get out, what do you think, Erin, about like engaging your dining director in a food demo, a cooking demonstration, things like that?
absolutely. No, there are a lot of ways you can do that. One of the things that I talk to operators about is using kind of the marketing and the food service in your resident engagement activities and departments, and kind of using those all together, right? There's so much like synergies that can be created within those three, and two of them are the hospitality experts in the community, right? So you think about doing like a food demonstration. Well, why aren't you putting that on a Zoom call and inviting prospects who maybe can't make it, or inviting your entire list of prospects, anybody who's a hot or a warm lead? Come watch this demo, see what we're doing in the community, right? Maybe it's a nutrition education. Maybe it's more of a chef showing you how to not maybe make a dish, but maybe how to cook at home or to do something simple, right? And so then you're starting to get further down the line with prospects of, well, I get online with, ABC Senior Living every month because they give me really good tips for cooking for two or something like that, right? And then when there's a need for, oh, well, maybe now we need to look at something like this, ABC Senior Living is now front and center, right? They're like, why wouldn't I go there? People have supported me for the last X number of months while I'm still living out here on my own. And so there's a lot of things like that. You can do outreach with farmers markets and
Mm,
food experiences, things of that
yeah,
nature. There are some senior living communities who will get into cooking competitions and
yeah,
their chefs will win, right? I've seen
yeah.
barbecue competitions and chili competitions where the chefs will go out in the community, they'll win best of, and now it's a easy, free like piece of marketing and advertisement that they're going to give you, and now you as the marketer can talk about, well, yeah, we've got a great chef because obviously he won Taste of Dallas this last year or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of ways to utilize your food and beverage directors and your executive chefs, and they're built in, right? It's not something you have to go out and spend lots and lots of dollars on because they're already in house.
Let me add some tips to the comments below on this one. I love that. Um, so those are, I mean, some great suggestions. I love it. Any other ways or suggestions, Aaron, to communicate food and dining as a differentiator? I mean, food's food. We have 3 meals a day and snacks
Right.
and nutrition and hydration.
Yeah. It's everybody's doing those things, right? Like you can go to a website and yes, they've got their dining program, but their dining program is a lot of times it's really great marketing material. Like they've come up with it, they've named it something, it's a great name and it describes what they're doing. But it, like you said, 3 meals, hydration. What I think works best to make yourself a differentiator is to truly treat what you're doing from an operation standpoint like you're trying to sell a restaurant, right? Create the experience on the backside, get the processes and everything in place so that way it just becomes second nature. I tell dining directors, you should think like with a profit mindset. Like, how can you generate money, right? And for them, in this instance, money isn't actual physical dollars, which still could be, but this is, it's that press, it's that like goodwill out in the market. Plus you can create concepts with your dining room. You can create specialty, pop up restaurants, things of that nature that give the marketers opportunities to say, "Hey, you should come check this out. This is something we do. I talk to operators about a number of different things, and it really truly comes down to it, the more they think like I'm trying to shift from being an expense center to a profit center, even just the mindset of that gets them thinking in lines and in ways that are going to benefit the marketing and sales process exponentially, because anything they do in that front becomes a marketable thing for almost no cost for the marketing team.
In this competitive landscape that's only getting more competitive, these types of things that you suggest, I love these ideas, are really critical. They're really
Yeah.
necessary. We can't afford to do the basics. We really need to look at every department, if you will, and it's the dining is it really creating those experiences. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, right? I like how you say, think of it as a profit center, like, or owning your business.
Yeah.
Each department had really owning your business because they're running a business within a business, usually, if they're a bigger
Right.
operator, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well, Aaron,
and I
oh,
will
go,
just add this, the other piece of all of that is that's going to get the people who are experts at that coming to work with us,
hmm.
coming in, and that's the thing that they're going to like work towards, right? They'll do the grind of the 3 meals a day if they know I also get to do all of these cool fun things. And so I think even from a personnel standpoint, doing these things helps you with recruiting good staff too. So there's a number of ways that this can impact the community for sure.
Yeah, and staffing, we need every advantage, right? Yeah. What is there anything, Aaron, that you've heard from the dining side that, for lack of a better way, kind of bothers them or rubs them the wrong way on sales, or any advice you could give sales and marketers for that
Yeah,
stronger collaboration?
I think too, what, right? Well, the first one I kind of already mentioned, right? That communication. You can never over communicate, right? So make any sort of way you can integrate processes about tours or prospects or ways that dining team can help with prospects and include them. I think you're going to get more ownership and buy-in. And it doesn't become an afterthought of, oh, hey, can I get one of those like specialty gift pie things you make, right? So that communication aspect is key. But I think the other thing is just really letting them kind of shine, right? Like let them be the marketer for you, build that trust with them. And I really think that when you do that, you're going to get more support, you're going to get better buy-in, and in the grand scheme of things, they're going to help the marketers do their job and make all of it so much easier.
Excellent advice. I so enjoyed our conversation today, Aaron. I have one last question for you.
Yes.
For those of us who are planning our vacation to Kansas, what is the one thing we absolutely can't miss?
So there's a few things, but what I will say is this is a shout out for the little town I grew up in. So I grew up in a little town called Sedan, and they are known for having the world's longest yellow brick road. It's
What?
so when I was a wee lad, they actually went to the downtown area and they carved out like a 3.5, 4 foot section of all of the sidewalks, and they poured yellow concrete. And for at the time it was $10 a brick. You got your name stamped into it.
Oh,
So my name is actually on the yellow brick road in Sedan, Kansas, and it's a little town kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it's a really it's a cool thing to check out. So if you're ever in Southeast Kansas doing that, that's a kind of a fun thing. And there's some cool little shops in the town. But yeah, that's a one kind of unknown, but kind of fun fact. Kansas is known for Dorothy and the Yellow Brick Road. So there it is.
there it is. And I'm guessing that's kind of where Dorothy landed, if you will,
I
right?
would assume so, yes.
Yeah, yeah. That is so bizarre that you said that, because I was just thinking about The Wizard of Oz today, and
Yeah,
how it was my favorite movie as a child. Once a year it would come on TV. But when you really think about it, it's really scary. It's a scary movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, my daughter to this day, she's 19, she's never seen it. I mean, she started it and I don't think she's ever watched it. Such an interesting movie for, us kids to love so much, but it's a
Yeah.
classic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll probably get roasted by other Kansas natives because that's such a stereotypical thing to talk about, right? The Wizard of Oz. But I just, when you asked that question, I was like, well, I could talk about Kansas State, but that's all back here over my shoulder, so everybody's seeing it. I was like, I'm going to mention that because that's
I
not something
love
people
it.
talk about.
Well,
So
I didn't know about that. I did not know about that. So that is going on the proverbial bucket list.
there you go.
All right. Well, Aaron Fish from Trestle Hospitality Concepts, thank you so much for spending time with me today. And thank you all for listening or watching another episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. You can learn more about Grow Your Occupancy at our website, growyouropcupancy.com, and email, call, text, shout out. Love to hear from you. Thank you very much.